I've been asked to comment on the trading issue of Reverend Father Mbaka's altercation on Mr. Peter Obi, who has declared his intent to become the next president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria under the platform of the Labour Party. I'm neither a partisan politician nor a religious chum, and I'm addressing this matter for educational purposes. And I've taken the topic, the perils of smashing the truth, an impending lesson from the Diatribe of Camillus, Ejike, Mbaka, Reverend Father. The Catholic just reactions and evaluations of Peter Obi's presidential prospect. So let's deal on this issue. The perils of smashing the truth. Among the urban dwelling and elitist youth of Nigeria, a fearsome and fearful reaction against growing inequality, loss of common identity, economic dislocation, and abject poverty in the midst of plenteous financial stocks and vast natural resources wealth of Nigeria, has launched an unprecedented mobility in the form of radical movement against the Nigerian political status quo, whilst putting up Mr. Peter Obi of the Labour Party as a preferred person among the candidates for 2023 presidential election. But as it stands, among the presidential candidates presented by various political parties in Nigeria, only Mr. Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, has presented a well-articulated, impressive, pragmatic, and promising manifesto, which he calls 5-point agenda. What I cannot say for now is whether the manifesto will go beyond the realm of rhetoric, the realm of implementation, if he becomes the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The other candidates seem to me to have accidental aspirations, devoid of long-term preparation for the office of the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We may evaluate this in my next presentation. But the urban dwelling and elitist youth of Nigeria seem to have taken a position focusing on Mr. Peter Obi and his unprecedented democratic renovating trend. The critical mass youth who are clamoring for Mr. Obi never and may never read the 5-point agenda manifesto of Atiku Abubakar. Of course, Nigerians have bad reading culture. Even Nigerian PhD holders and professors do not always read, except for the purpose of certificate examinations and industrial promotion. How then would they know that Atiku Abubakar's manifesto carries a lot of promising futures? His 5-point agenda, if implemented, will usher in a better Nigeria. This absence of good reading culture has rendered Atiku Abubakar's 5-point agenda manifesto a mirage, because information placed inside a book which is not assimilated by the masses tantamount to non-existence of such information. Therefore, the only person among the political parties' candidates trending at the material time is Mr. Peter Obi and his unprecedented democratic movement for the purpose of elucidation. This does not mean that I am affirming that Mr. Peter Obi will become the president of Nigeria in 2023. Of course, the Reverend Mbaka did affirm likely Obi will not be the president in 2023 for the reason which I will adduce hereunder. But Mr. Peter Obi has shaken the status quo of the Nigerian electioneering process, and that is commendable. The general epitaph and Mbaka's supposed prophetic statement about politicking. What is religion doing in politics? Let us ask, why will religion dabble into politics? Recently, the Christian Association of Nigeria, CANT, made out some threat to political parties, advising them to desist from taking Muslim presidential candidature ticket. I did ask what religion was doing in politics. No one offered a credible answer. Generally, there is nothing mystical about the incessant statement of the ecclesiastical prophets, the pastors and the imams, concerning political and social affairs of men. In the instant case, there is also no prophetic sense or prophecy per se in the altercation of the Catholic priest, Mr. Camillus, Ejike, Mbaka, the Reverend Father. In Africa, the acclaimed prophet and self-taught men of God always ascribe to themselves the mouthpiece of God, while simply making commonsensical analysis of events that every knowledgeable man of analytical capacity should be able to predict. Unfortunately, the gullible minds keep purchasing these personal analyses of the so-called men of God as prophecies from God, hook, line, and sinker. Let it be understood the very much significant or pertinent to understand the creative central force of this great universe, God Almighty, is too great. And even though His energy, the energy of God, fits every texture, from invisible to the visible, from the tiniest to the inestimable, the concentration of such a creative force is unbalancing and harmonizing the every second evolutional gravity, velocity, and all vibrational movement of the great universe. It is never a business of the supernatural to dabble into a mere earthly politicking of men in this gross material world, even in a great country like the United States of America, which leadership affects humanity and the global world, or any developed countries, talk less of this developed third world country like Nigeria. The African ecclesiastical prophets, the pastors and imams should stop posting commonsensical analyses as that of the prophecies of God, as they do not even understand what God is. I am persuaded that religion should be separated from politics. Religion angers on spiritual thoughts and belief. It is instructional pathway to spirituality, which is for a journey of a soul. Such journey is personal and transformative. His progress made on a mountain path elevates the mountaineer. That is the soul personality. The levels of broader perspective an evolution of the soul. Therefore, religion shouldn't be reduced to a level of politics, which is of a collective material essence. The two should not mix. Politics and religion should not mix. Let us look at the reaction of the Catholic leadership on Reverend Camillus Ejike Mbaka altercation, where the leadership of Catholic Diocese of Enugu A. On the official statement of the Catholic Diocese of Enugu, chastening Reverend Camillus Ejike Mbaka and ordering the Catholic faithful not to worship in Mbaka's presided center of the church. Well, I am not a member of the Catholic religion, hence I will only discuss this aspect only on the point of law. Reverend Father Mbaka has not violated the canon law of the Catholic faith as far as the provisions cited by the Catholic Diocese of Enugu are concerned. The Catholic leadership has accused Reverend Father Mbaka of violating the canon 220 of the 1983 Code of the Canon Law, which prohibits anyone from illegitimately harming the good name of a person. The Catholic leadership based this allegation on the fact that Reverend Ejike Mbaka called Mr. Peter Krikoris to be a stingy man. I do not see how that statement of calling Mr. Peter Obi a stingy man constitutes a harm on Mr. Obi's reputation, when Mr. Obi himself has incessantly affirmed in the public domain that he does not give out cash and gifts, and that he prefers to save money than spending sense. The Oxford Dictionary 9th edition defines the adjective word stingy as not generous, especially with money. This fits Peter Obi's self-affirmed personality, which is in the public domain. So Reverend Father Mbaka mere repeated to his congregants what Peter Obi continually says about himself. Therefore, there is no case of vilification or assassination of character or illegitimate harming of reputation that can be established against Mr. Reverend Father Mbaka. To argue further, Mr. Peter Obi will need to approach the court of competent jurisdiction or petition and establish quasi-judicial committee of the Catholic Church, if such exists in the Catholic religion, to establish that Mbaka has illegitimately harmed his reputation and tender certified copy of such ruling from either the courts or such quasi-judicial formation of the Catholic religion before the Catholic Church administration can have the legitimacy and jurisdiction to sanction Mbaka to that effect. The Catholic leadership also alleges that Reverend Mbaka, Ejike Mbaka, whatsoever, made a fund of the Labour Party and vowed that Mr. Peter Obi could not be the president of Nigeria, and that doing so, he has violated Canon 287, subsection 2 of the Code of Canon Law, which forbids priests from engaging in partisan politics. It is my considered opinion that it is the Catholic Church leadership of the Catholic Diocese of Enugu that is rather sentimentally expressed statement that suggests engaging in partisan politics here. Mbaka, the Reverend Father, did not register as a member of any political party and did not campaign to his congregants in favor of any political party in specific terms. How did he engage in partisan politics? As a citizen of Nigeria, Reverend Mbaka, Ejike Mbaka, Camillus Ejike Mbaka, the Reverend Father, has a right to criticize or evaluate any political parties or politicians who aspire to lead the country, because the governance will have impact on him and his loved ones. Once you present yourself as a product for public political office, every citizen is entitled to evaluate your character, pedigree, competence, and credentials, unless such public office will not have direct impact on their life. The citizens can do so at any platform where they exert influence, unless it is against the law of that platform, or tantamount to assassinations of person's character, because character assassination does not only attract civil and criminal liabilities, it also attracts spiritual karma. Under the provisions of international human rights law and the constitutional law of Nigeria, Mr. Camillus Ejike Mbaka has the right to freedom of expression, only that on moral and spiritual stands, he should not post his personal opinion as prophecy from God, because the supernatural is not concerned in such matters of earthly politicking, and God does not talk to them about political affairs of men as they always falsely claim. Now let's look at the issue of Peter Obi. While Obi is not yet old, the spinster of becoming president, as erroneously asserted by his followers. Remember, I stated that the topic of this presentation is the perils of smashing the truth. In the Christian Bible, it is stated, recorded as ascribed to the Lord Jesus Christ of the Christian Bible, of the Christian consciousness. It said, "For ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set ye free." Unfortunately, the collective mindset of Mr. Peter Obi believers, who strongly assert that it is possible for him to become the president of Nigeria in the general election, forthcoming general election of 2023 in Nigeria, and that he is the best and only good candidate, makes them not much different from this set of people, namely a woman in love, a religionist who believes in his prophet or a prophet, a person who does not know and does not know that he does not know. In other words, a person who suffers ignorance and stupidity, which is one among the three classes of ignorance in the philosophy of knowledge. This set of people defile advice and contrary opinions, as they do not follow logic, reasons, and science, except belief, sentiment, and emotions. Unfortunately, belief and truth are two different things. Emotions and sentiment have never transformed reality to desires. Reality remains reality. Therefore, I agree with Reverend Father Camillus Ejike Mbaka, not as a matter of belief in his prophetic claim, because that is not prophecy, but a simple analytical prediction, but as a matter of fact and reality, that Peter Obi cannot be president of Nigeria in 2023. And I will tell you why. The first reason is the fact that, just as other realistic men, I am not convinced about Mr. Peter Obi's mission in his declaration to lead Nigeria as president in 2023, having read and heard from Mr. Obi himself. I have come to the conclusion that his promises and claims of capacity for good governance are spectral, as they are based on the capacity to preserve money, In other words, on frugality. Monetary preservation or economic frugality is not one of the characteristics of the good governance and leadership. Same is economic maximization through political power. They are both sides of the same coin. Take, for instance, the United States of America spend money like drinking water on social security, on essential commodity, on defense, on medicals, on research, on welfare, on charity, and help non-governmental and intergovernmental agencies and organizations, as well as at least developed countries and individuals. Spending hasn't reduced America from our position as the most powerful country in the world in terms of economic development and stabilization, military might, security, medicine and health system, science and technology, knowledge system, and institutionalism. Frugality is not part of the characteristics that guarantee good governance and leadership. Leaders have a claim integrity, like what Nigerians boast about President Muhammadu Buhari proud 2015 electioneering process. It was all about a man with integrity who will exterminate corruption, and I am persuaded, as I did say oftentimes, and still at this material time, that corruption is not the centrifugal problem of Nigeria. Spending money is not the centrifugal problem of Nigeria. The prime problem of Nigeria is intellectual poverty and absence of knowledge-based system in governance and in the citizenry, as well as absence of institutionalism. What is not added as a part of the biggest problem that needs to be resolved. What is now added, as part of the biggest problem in Nigeria that needs to be resolved is lack of unity. This is because no matter how intellectually sound a leader is, no matter the ideals of government, where there is no peace, there cannot be an enabling environment for development. The qualities that guarantee good governance and leadership. It is important that we know now what are the qualities that guarantee good governance and leadership. They are character, number one, character, number two, patriotism, number three, public and corporate policy experience, number four, intellectual prowess and competence. Please, it is pertinent to note that intellectual prowess and competence can only be demonstrated by productivity, not collegiate certificate. As most Nigerians and Africans erroneously always think, the true manifestation of education is not in collegiate certificate, it is in productivity. And even with this, no development can be achievable in a society that is not a knowledge-based system and that is not of peaceful coexistence. The problem of Nigeria at the material time is bigger than an individual eccentricity. There is a whole lot of work to do. First, new government coming in must start by institutionalization of knowledge-based system and by unifying the country, unifying the people. Ethno-religious and tribal sentiment should be a focus to eradication to bring Nigeria as one brotherhood citizenry. This includes recognizing different interest groups' rights that the current administration has suppressed, or the different interest sentiment that the current administration has escalated. Mr. Peter Obi's promise that he would transform Nigeria from consumption to production state is iconoclastically meretricious. not different from Muhammad Buhari's promise of 2014 to ensure that 24 hours electricity supply, to ensure the supply of electricity of 24 hours, and to end Boko Haram. So we have had those theoretical mantra before. Mr. Obi has not presented the methodology on how he will transform Nigeria from consumption to production state, and how it will cause the other arms of government to assimilate such formula, since the executive arm of government cannot implement any governance formula exclusively in a democratic dispensation without the cooperation of the other arms of government. How could a person who has declared his intent to be a president begin traveling to Egypt for study of development plan during the electioneering process? It simply means he never prepared for governance before the declaration of intent. One of the indices of impending failure in governance is declaration before the design of manifesto or governance agenda. To have leadership which can deliver good governance, one will have to prepare for a number of years with detailed methodology of works and a strategy for election. What is happening in Nigeria today as a result of Buhari's APC government's lack of preparation for leadership and governance, except just a penchant to take over power. As the power was given, Nigeria became a failed state that it is today, heading towards a collapsed state status. What Nigeria needs now, so as not to enter the next destructive phase, is leadership that can launch a renaissance from a failed state status back to a nationhood status. The same way Nigerians were carried away by the sentiments and emotions following the mantra of Muhammadu Buhari, the current president of Nigeria, a man who was tagged as a man who will end corruption. Such error should not be repeated. On this score, faithful analysts and men of truth and realism will not just jump into Mr. Peter's critical ship blindly, but simply affirming the capacity of transforming Nigeria from consumption to production state, for simply angering its qualifications and credentials and competence and ability to preserve money, for simply not presenting governance development plan before declaration, except to preach a doctrine of money conservation. This, of course, demonstrates lack of preparation. Why Peter Obi will not win as president of Nigeria in 2003 general election? My own view. On another lane, Mr. Peter Obi political platform, the Labour Party, LP, has no nationalistic structure. Peter Obi might be a very good candidate. Obi and his supporters have claimed that the teeming Nigerian youth, the poor and the deprived masses constitute its structure. Politics has its own paradigm. I agree that in democracy, it is the people that give power to leaders. I agree that Mr. Peter Obi has teeming supporters among the urban dwellers, citizenry, and elitist youth. I affirm again that in democracy it is the people that give power to leaders, not otherwise. But each community where the people hail from has their political leaders, has its political leaders who are forces and gladiators of political parties. Peter Obi is not contesting as an independent candidate. He represents a political party. So it is a game of political parties versus political parties. Now, the rhetoric of transforming Nigeria from consumption to production state is only assimilated by the elites and urban dwelling youth. Elections are largely done in villages, where greater numbers of polling units are located. Those villagers do not follow theories, they follow the opinion of their political leaders. Peter Obi's followers have also forgotten that the teeming populations of northern Nigerians, the Amajiris, and the community's youth and women do not understand any theories than what their political leaders and gladiators say. These gladiators are not with Obi. They are not with Peter Obi. They are for the People's Democratic Party and the All Progressive Congress, the status quo. And in Kano State, for example, a state which competes with Lagos State on the food strength, they are for Kwankwaso, the NNPP guy, because of his long-term political influence in that state. He will share the vote between his interests and the APC. Even if Kwankwaso elects to give majority of Kano State vote to Mr. Peter Obi to add to the whole of southern East Nigeria, which would overwhelmingly vote for Mr. Peter Obi of the Labour Party. Peter Obi will not meet up the constitutional profession of Nigeria that requires the Nigerian constitutional profession under the Nigerian Constitution of the under the Federal Republic of Nigeria in the 1999 Constitution as amended, which requires that to be president, a candidate and his political party must have majority vote cast. Give and take at least 25 states of the Federation by proper analysis. This is because apart from Kano State under Kwankwaso's corporations and some other urban cities of the North Central State, like the Benue State, the Kogi State, the Nasarawa State, the Kwara State, the FCT Abuja, Peter Obi cannot win the Northwest and Northeast Nigeria. He cannot win in those states. These areas will be dominated and shared between Atiku Abubakar and Bola Tinubu, Atiku Abubakar of the PDP and Bola Tinubu of the APC. While Atiku Abubakar will lead in the game in those areas. In conclusion, the chances are very bright for Mr. Atiku Abubakar of the PDP. And I do not have problem with Mr. Atiku Abubakar becoming the president of Nigeria. I am convinced by his 5-point agenda. That's the starting point. He has prepared for the presidency by reading and assimilating a 5-point agenda. I shows that he means well for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I cannot guarantee the implementation. I cannot guarantee implementation for any Nigerian politician, but I am convinced by that impressive 5-point agenda. And that's what we need. It is not the conservation of money. That will not solve Nigerian problem. The Nigerian problems are already listed, enumerated in that 5-point agenda. The rule of law, issue of the rule of law, the education, unity of Nigeria, education, institutionalizing Nigeria, how do we turn Nigeria into a knowledge-based system? That is the foundation. But he has turned a Byzantine complexity for Mr. Ejike Abubakar of the PDP led to Mr. Peter Obi's unprecedented radical movement. So the PDP made a mistake to have allowed Mr. Peter Obi to leave the People's Democratic Party, because you cannot underrate or belittle this unprecedented radical movement. The PDP ought to have persuaded Mr. Peter Obi to stand as a running mate to Mr. Ejike Abubakar of the PDP. The PDP will have had 80% chance of winning the election. I would love a situation where Mr. Peter Obi speak up with Mr. Ejike Abubakar. At this time, unfortunately, all what Mr. Peter Obi and Kwankwaso of the Mr. Peter Obi of the LP and Kwankwaso of the NNPP might achieve in their defection from the People's Democratic Party, PDP, to the LP and NNPP is to cause Ejike Abubakar's failure and give the ballot to Ahmed Bola Tinubu of the APC. Peter Obi and Kwankwaso participation in the presidential race via the LP and the NNPP is nothing than a spoiler contest for the destruction of the chances of Ejike Abubakar. Ejike's brightest chances of and to sustain the APC government in power, a political party that has woefully disappointed Nigeria. It will be wrong to allege, but it seems likely that Mr. Peter Obi and Kwankwaso are unconscious operatives working for the enthronement of Bola Ahmed Tinubu of the APC, a political party that a vast majority of Nigerians have rejected this time. The party's rulership under the aegis of President Muhammad Buhari have accelerated Nigeria to status of a failed state, convoluting towards a collapsed status. In conclusion, we are very largely correct to have positive dreams about our future and the future of our generation yet unborn, our families and our country and our humanity as a whole. But there are three main classes of dreams, all playing a very important role in human life, but not all as efficient as paraphernalia with which the will can work out destiny. The classification are: number 1, the sleeping or hallucinating dream; number 2, the visionary dream; and number 3, the creative dream. While the sleeping dream or hallucinating dream may be a facade or illusion, the visionary dream forms and emanates from the implant of our thoughts and desire to give us information on how the result may likely be, but never so certain. The creative dream attaches to realism. We are to appreciate the significance of our dream about Nigeria. We must dream a creative dream. It means Nigerians this time must be constructive in their approach on how they choose their leaders and who they choose as the president, and how the choices they make will not take away a somewhat better opportunity and usher in the poorest. This is a food for thought.